Well, thank you, and thanks to everyone who's made time to join us today, which I imagine these days are quite busy, so we appreciate it. As you heard from Caroline, my name is Chris Moores, and I'm the Director of Product Management here at Proofpoint, and I'll be sort of covering the majority of the content in today's webinar. In terms of an agenda, we're going to sort of break the session up into a few sort of key areas. We're going to start by providing you sort of a reminder of some of the upcoming critical milestones in the sort of McAfee end of life. And you heard Caroline mention we have a few guests to assist us with that. I will also be taking you through a walkthrough of the migration process, covering both the McAfee console and Proofpoint Essentials. Now, many of you may have already started, which is great. So some of this will be sort of a repeat. Some of you have not, and this will be sort of a good place to get started. But we'll sort of cover through that. We've also made time to provide answers to some of the more commonly posed questions around migration. And then finally, we're going to make sure there's quite a lot of time at the end for a lively Q&A. So as Caroline mentioned, we have Graham Clark and Kevin Conboy who have joined us today, both from Intel Security. So I'm going to hand off to Graham in a moment, but just I want to echo or repeat something Caroline mentioned. This session is for you. You probably have lots of questions, so please use the chat or the Q&A panel. Both Graham and Kevin will be able to answer questions while I'm talking. And then once we sort of finish sort of the more formal walkthrough, we can open those questions up to everyone and cover anything that we hasn't been answered. So please, if you've got a question, start posing those right away. Now, why don't I hand it off to Mr. Clark. Graham, can you hear me okay? Can you ready to take over?
I can hear you fine. You hear me okay?
I can. Thank you very much. So why don't you take the reins? This is the key information, so why don't you get started?
Okay, thank you, Chris. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Obviously, you see my name is Graham Clark. I'm responsible. One of the things I'm responsible for are our email products. So I'm going to take you through some of the key end-of-life dates we have. So Chris, if you want to move on to the next slide. Thank you. Now, the first thing I want to make very clear is that these dates apply to our monthly subscribers. So if you have accounts who are on yearly subscriptions or multi-year subscriptions, they do not follow these dates. So this is just monthly. So as you can see, that the next key milestone coming up is January the 11th. That is the official end-of-life date. We actually stopped our billing in December, so the last bills that we sent out will take people up to that date but not past it. Now, you won't actually see any official activity on the Jan 11th date. We're not going to be changing anything on that date because that's close towards the end of the week, and we felt this was not a good time to actually start that because, of course, we understand that this may generate some escalations, and that's going to be hard to handle over the weekend. So what will happen on the 16th of January is we'll change the way that we are notifying people about the fact that the service is officially end of life. At the moment, we are currently displaying a warning message in the control console of our product, and also there is some text which has been added to our spam quarantine report. That report goes to anyone using our service for whom we have quarantined one or more spam messages over the last 24 hours. So when we get to January 16, we're going to actually change that slightly such that any user who either sends or receives an email message through our service on any particular day will get a notification email reminding them of the service termination. We'll only send one per day, and we'll only send that on days where they have either sent or received a message. Clearly in that text, we will be advising people that they should urgently speak to their partners because they need to move off that platform. So even on the 16th of January, the service will not have terminated as far as customer access, despite the fact that officially, of course, the product is end of life from the 11th. Now, the terminations will start on January 23rd and will go through to April the 11th. We are spreading it out over a number of months, as you can see there, because, again, we want to try to make sure that we don't overload any support lines for our partners or ourselves. Now, I will point out that once we start this on January 23rd, we will not be producing any additional warnings prior to the ones that I've already mentioned and that are already in place. And as you can see there, we'll be terminating around 500 accounts per day. So basically, the last day where there will be any guarantee of service with no intrusion or no intrusive reminders or anything will be January the 15th. And of course, past the 23rd, there's no guarantee at all regarding any service availability for our accounts. Now, I know there has been, I've heard that there's been some discussion as to, are these the real dates? Is McAfee going to extend this? No, we are not planning on offering any extensions past these dates. What I can also tell you, because this might give you a little bit of relief once we start the termination process, if you haven't managed to migrate all of your customers onto a Proofpoint solution, is that we will be terminating accounts on an alphabetical basis. That's not per partner. That's taking all of the accounts across all of the partners, putting them into an order, and we'll start with companies with numeric digits as their leading the leading digit in their name first, and working through those on that basis. So if you feel that you are not going to be able to migrate everyone off by those dates, clearly the advice that I can give you is to alphabetize those and start on that basis. I see there's a question saying, what does terminated actually mean? That means that we will actually stop passing any messages at all. So if anyone tries to send a message to someone who is using our service, they will get a 500 series bounce, which means that we would not accept the message. And similarly, anyone using our service trying to send through it to an external recipient will also get a bounce message. So it is a hard fail at that point. Okay, so that's a summary of the key EOL dates. Chris, I can let you carry on with the remaining slides, and if there are other questions around what I've just covered, feel free to ask them in the Q&A, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Graham. I appreciate that, and I'm pretty sure everyone who's attended the session appreciates that. So as I am talking, please continue to post those questions. Graham and Kevin can answer them, and we'll of course have time at the very end. So let's move on and continue. So there's a couple things I wanted to point out, or just give you some updates on. So we've seen a lot of migration activity. As you can see, we've migrated about 4,300. That's about 2 or 3 days old. I'm sure that number is much higher now. 4,300 accounts have been migrated so far. And what that accounts connected means, part of this process, and you'll sort of see it firsthand in a moment, is essentially linking your account, whether it's an individual customer account that you manage or your partner account inside of McAfee, linking those to Proofpoint Essentials. And in linking them, we get to see the hierarchy of your customers underneath your partner accounts. So we see all of those connections, and that way we could essentially see that of the, and I'll just round up, of the 10,000 accounts that have been connected, about half have been migrated so far. So there's quite a lot of outstanding activity, and my guess is there's a lot of accounts that have yet to be connected, so that number might be low as well. So again, lots of migrations taking place, but clearly time is running out, as you've just heard from Graham, and again, that's why we're having this webinar, and I want to use this time to sort of give people either an introduction or a refresher on the migration process. Now, there's two different processes depending on the type of partner. So I'm grouping these into F3 partners and F1 or F2 partners. And What I mean by F3 is if you have the ability to have the ability to self-provision accounts and you can manage your customers with a login to your partner site, then your experience will be slightly different than if you were on the other side where you are using, typically it's a spam admin account. But if you're using a spam admin account to manage your customers, the process is different. So I'm going to show you a little both. So starting on the left with the F3, what we have essentially tried to do is make sure that if you have the ability with your account to see all of your customers, then you're going to see those customers inside of Proofpoint once you make the connection, and you'll be able to pick and choose who you want to migrate. So you would start by, of course, what probably should be here is you'd have to have an account on Proofpoint, so that would already need to be done. But assuming you've got the account on Proofpoint, you log into the McAfee control console with your account. You'll see a nice new button and a big banner across the top that will take you to your data migration tab where you can grant access. And what you're doing when you're granting access is you're essentially passing along a token that is shared with Essentials, and that token's good for 30 days. And that token allows Proofpoint to connect to the McAfee environment and see everything you can see. So it will see all of your hierarchy underneath you. And then we present them in a nice little dashboard, and you can choose who you want to migrate. You might want to migrate, maybe you have partners underneath you, so you can migrate those partners or customers, but you can see everything in that dashboard, pick and choose who you want to migrate, choose the package, whether they're on trial or not, and then initiate migration, and then when that's all done, you'll get a confirmation the migration is complete in the form of an update to the dashboard as well as an email. Now, if you're on the right side of this and you are essentially managing customers directly with a sort of a customer login, then there is an additional step. You now need to, so again, same thing applies. You still need an account on Proofpoint, but you also need to create a term shell, which I'm adopting from the McAfee side. So you have to create a customer shell in Essentials, which is basic placeholder, a domain, an administrator, just basic information. And then once you've done that, you can then log in with your spam admin account to the control console. Click that data migration tab and grant access button. That will take you over to it's Proofpoint where you can click to migrate, and then again you'll get a confirmation when that's done. So the key differences is on the left side, if you again have the sort of ability to sort of manage your customers with one login, you can do a lot of this inside of Proofpoint. You can see your full customer list and pick and choose who you want to migrate. And if you don't have that access, then you have to create that customer shell initially in Essentials and do it one by one. Okay, so let's sort of take you through this, and I'll show you the differences where they apply. So here is the control console, and here is the new tab that was added several months ago, and the banner, of course, highlighting that tab as well. So you would log in, you would click on that tab, which would take you to a screen here, which is essentially informing you of the access that this, but sort of following this step and checking this box and clicking this button, the access it's granting Proofpoint to be able to essentially have a 30-day access to McAfee to pull your information. And again, at the end of that 30 days, the token expires, and you would have to, if you weren't done, you'd have to go back in and reauthorize this access. That's the first step. And again, this is regardless of whether you fall into either the F3 side of things or the F1 or F2. Once you click that grant access button, it takes you to a Proofpoint Essentials login page where it's associating the token with the domain that you click through on. And then you can log into the service. So you would, again, just reinforces the fact that you do need an account on Proofpoint Essentials for this to work. Now, one thing that I've seen a lot of questions come in is, hey, I click on that button and I go to a marketing page. So there is a setting on the Proofpoint Essentials side that has to be enabled in order for you to see this sort of the login page. So I've seen various tickets come in or questions come in around that, and we sort of check that for you. So if you're a partner and you're seeing that, then there is a setting, and this is documented in our migration guide. But there is a checkbox you need to check to make sure you see this. In addition, the domain that you logged in with. So in this case, you can see niitservices.com. So that's the domain you use when you connect to McAfee. That domain has to be registered with Proofpoint, and that setting I just mentioned has to be checked. So those two things have to happen for you to see this page. And if you don't see this page, or if neither of those things happen, you're taken to a sort of a frequently asked question marketing page explaining the overall program. So just highlighting that because I've seen a few questions coming around that. So assuming those things are done, you click on it, you see this landing page, that's great, you log in. Now here's where some of the differences between your access come into play. So this is a dashboard that a F3 partner, where again, somebody who can sort of manage their customer base with a single login, that allows us to query the McAfee side and bring back that hierarchy and show partners and customers. So you can use this tool now to sort of check which customers you want to migrate. You can choose what package. So again, Proofpoint is offered in packages, beginner, business, and advanced and professional. So you would choose the appropriate package, which I imagine you'd have information on already. So you choose the package. You can choose the account status. And what account status is do you want this to be on trial, or do you want this to be sort of a live account? My recommendation is choose trial. Trial is good for 30 days. There's no difference in functionality. That gives you time to migrate the account, check to make sure everything's okay, and do any cleanup. Ultimately, switch MX records, get the customer comfortably on, and then the service will automatically roll over to billable after 30 days. So definitely encourage you to use that to your advantage. There's another step also which is called apply a template. So in the Essentials product, we have the ability to define templates, and those templates allow you to essentially create default settings for your customers as they're migrated. Maybe it's certain features you want turned on, maybe it's a more aggressive spam threshold, maybe some branding, whatever the case might be. You can define these templates, and by using these templates during migration, we'll automatically set all those defaults up for you. So it's completely optional, but can help minimize some of the post-migration workflow steps that you would have. And once you're ready, you've selected the customers, you've chosen the package and the status, you hit migrate. Now, if you're an F1 or F2 side of things, where you're logging in with that spam admin, then when you log in, and this means you've created a customer shell with some basic information, you've gone over to the control console, you've clicked that button, you've logged in, then you see this screen. This is Start Migration. So this is going to do the same thing as the previous, right? So that's the same as hitting Migrate, except on this page you can do more than one, and you can see them. Here you're essentially triggering that migration by clicking on that button. So you click on that button, and then the migration kicks off. Now again, going back to the F3 side, when a migration is done, again, you've got this dashboard which sort of breaks down, who you haven't migrated, what's pending. When a migration has completed, you'll see them on the migration tab, and you'll see a view report link. So you've got some basic information, and you've got a report. And the report's going to provide you meaningful information about what was migrated around domains and users and policies. So that report is here. So this is just a bit of a screen cap. So you'll see basic settings, licensing information, features that are turned off. You're going to see users. You're also going to see user allow and block entries, user aliases, domains, policies, group information. That will all be available for you when you click on this View Report button. You can also download a report as a PDF just for reference purposes or whatever you might need. And then when you're all ready and set and done, if you click on the View Dashboard, it will actually take you to the newly created customer entity that now exists on Essentials that's been populated by all the information that's come from McAfee. So this report here that you see is also going to be available for essentially for F2 and F3, sorry, F1 and F2 partners as well. So the difference is you won't have this screen, but you'll get an email. An email will include a link to the report. So the same report, the same information is available to you when you log in and go and see that customer site and click on that McAfee tab, this McAfee Migration Tool tab. You'll see the same information here, which breaks down users, domain, and group information and allows you to view the dashboard. So the content is the same. It's just the way to get there is slightly different. And once you click on that View Dashboard, it's done, right? So we've now migrated all of that information over, all their company information, users, user aliases, domain aliases, most policies. You know, a lot of information has now come over, and you're ready to go on to the next one. So hopefully that is, you know, again, many of you have seen that already, and this is a repeat. Some of you might be seeing this for the first time. We do have guides on this too that spell out all these steps, but hopefully that just gives you what you need to get moving if you've been stuck. So hopefully that was helpful. Now, in terms of some frequently asked questions, so this is some of the things that we've had questions come in both regards to McAfee and to Essentials. So I'm going to answer some of them here. Again, we haven't answered everything, which is why we've got the Q&A panel and the chat panel and the Intel security experts. So please, if you don't see them here and you don't hear me talking about them, ask away. So the very basic one is, hey, where's that tab located? So it's on the account management tab or under the account management tab. And there's also a large banner across the top that will guide you there. Now, one of the biggest questions we get is, I don't see it, what's going on? Now, there are various reasons why you may not see it. I think most of those reasons have been addressed over the past few months. One of the bigger reasons, what I want to highlight, is seeing that tab, you may be required to register, especially if you're on the sort of fall into the F3 side. So if you don't see it, that's where you are, then certainly please contact your Essentials channel account manager. They will be able to go through that registration process for you, at least guide you to what you need to do, and go through. It's a relatively straightforward process, and then the culmination of that process is that tab is exposed to you. So again, if you can't see it and you fall into that, you know, please contact Essentials and we can assist you. In other cases, it could be there could be a few reasons. So in those cases, you can send us a note. You can contact McAfee's sort of support team. But if you don't know, contact Proofpoint and we can assist you. There's lots of questions that come in around what's migrated and what's not. So I wanted to just repeat on this one and just make sure everyone knows what we migrate. And this will sort of give you an idea of what additional steps you would require after migration. So the key information is migrated. So the company information, domains, domain aliases, where those domains are routed to, user aliases, user allow and block lists, all brought over. I say most policies. There are some policies we don't migrate over. The most obvious example of this would be dictionaries. So any sort of custom, or should I say standard dictionaries that would be available on the McAfee side don't align perfectly to Proofpoint. Again, our migration report that I just highlighted will spell that out. It'll tell you that certain policies weren't migrated. So if there's a policy you have in place that's leveraging some of those sort of McAfee libraries, they won't be created. You will need to recreate them for your customers inside of Proofpoint Essentials. And the other element here that we get a lot of sort of questions around is anything related to the archiving service. So if you are using the archive available from McAfee, we do not migrate over archive configuration. We don't migrate any archive data. That information you would have to recreate inside of the configuration side. You'd have to recreate inside of Proofpoint. As far as the archive data goes, you would have to download that data that has been made available to you, and then work with Proofpoint to send that data to our teams, whether it's through a secure FTP or on a hard drive. We can then work with you to process and import that mail. But that's not done automatically. This is completely out of scope for the migration tool that is in place. Another area. This one is frequent, and there's probably this is a light touch on what's involved here. So I'll answer the question, but perhaps when time permitting, we can get Kevin to provide a little more details here. So if you have accounts that are set up as service providers, they aren't you can't migrate them. So you need to convert them to an enterprise account first. And again, as I mentioned, I'll see if Kevin can touch on that because there are some steps that you would need to go through. And once you convert them to an enterprise account, you would then need to inform Proofpoint of that, because we see those accounts, we've already seen them, but because they're service provider accounts, we've essentially flagged them as not to be, not migrated. So there's a step that we have to take to essentially change it to allow it to be migrated. It's a very minor step, but if that applies to you, and perhaps you've already started migration and you haven't seen them, seeing those accounts show up, it could be because they're service provider accounts. So again, get those converted, and then let us know, and we can assist you with that. Now on the essential side, so some common questions. So how long do migrations take? Great question. Comes up all the time. It's very quick. So typically under 30 minutes. There's a process that's running every 15 minutes, and that process is looking for any new migrations that they kicked off, and then it executes them. So generally, that's why I say 30 minutes. And again, you'll get an email confirmation the moment it's done. There are a few exceptions to that. If you're trying to migrate an account that has more than 1,000 users, then we would process that overnight, so it would be available the next day. Or if you use a template, both of those would trigger an overnight process. So one thing I will highlight here, and I'm going to give you an address in a moment, that an email address that if you're not aware of, write it down. But if you're ever in a situation where you need to migrate something very quickly and it falls into the next day, you can use that address and you can make the request, and we'll speed that up for you. So there is a way for us to trigger migrations as we need to. So certainly just keep that in mind in terms of your planning and scheduling, that if anything meets this criteria, then it'll be complete the next day. But for whatever reason, if there's one in particular you need to move, then you can use that address and we can get to it for you. Is there additional work that I should do after migration? Absolutely, and this is also spelled out in the migration guide. The migration tool doesn't turn everything on for you. So it brings your data over, it produces the report that you should review and make sure, if there's anything we didn't migrate, you manually do. You should also do things like test the domains, make sure that they're working. It also allows us to be sure that we connect to the downstream destination. So are the IP addresses for essentials put into the customer's firewall? So these are all things that should be done. There's some additional settings you may want to customize. Send welcome emails. So this is definitely something I want to highlight. When you migrate users over to our system, our system would normally, when you add a user, send out a welcome email, introducing the service to them with a link to set a password. If they are a user that you want to be involved in that way, we have another type of user called a silent user, where they get the digest, but they don't get the ability to log in. But ultimately, we will not send those welcome emails out, and we're doing that on purpose because the time between migration, the time between switching MX records could be, there could be a lot of time there, and you may not want to tell people until you're ready. So in our user guide, we spell out the step that you can take to, when you're ready, do a mass update on your users and trigger a welcome email. So just want to highlight that one. Also, the domains that you migrate over aren't turned on, so you'd have to turn them on when you're ready. And then the last thing you could do is switch MX records. So there's a number of steps that you should do. This is all spelled out on migration guide. And again, once you do that for the first one, the second one, then it's a pretty straightforward process, and you can just make sure that's built into your schedule. Now, on the right-hand side, the sort of verify ownership. So in the Proofpoint Essentials world, this is different from McAfee. We need to make sure that before a domain is added onto the service, that we verify ownership. It's called domain verification. And that's critical for us to ensure that somebody isn't registering a domain that doesn't belong to them and trying to sort of circumvent the system in terms of routing. So what we have done is we've put in our process any domain coming over from this as part of this migration process that currently points to McAfee or MX Logic, MX Records, we'll automatically verify them. So there's no additional work. So assuming they're pointed already, we're essentially grandfathering them into our service and we're not putting any additional effort. But if those domains don't point to McAfee, maybe they already point to another location or they were never set up, whatever the case might be, you will have to verify them. Again, so we have documentation and steps on how to do that. We support different methods of verification. So we've tried to do the best we can by, if they're already pointing to McAfee, we'll accept those as verified and create no additional work for you. But if they're not, then you will have to go through the verification process. If you have any questions about that, contact Proofpoint, your channel account manager, our support team, we can provide you assistance. And the last point here, I essentially already covered quite aggressively, the welcome emails. They don't get welcome emails. If you want that to happen, you need to take that step. I point that out heavily because that is definitely something I've heard, seen some questions. Hey, why don't people they don't know about the service, how do I do that? And so that's why I wanted to reinforce it. Now, before we get on to the Q&A, just again reinforcing, so if you've got a channel account manager essentials, you can contact them, they can assist you. And I also wanted to point out essentials-migration@proofpoint.com. So that is our alias we set up for migration. Many of you have already been using it. I am personally part of that migration, and I'm assisting many of our partners sort of resolve issues that they see. So we have a team of people ready to assist you. So please, if you have a question about migration, about post-migration, about why I don't see my migration tab, whatever the case might be, use that alias, and we're here to help. So with that, I want to make sure there's adequate time for Q&A. So I will pause and drink a glass of water, and then maybe, Caroline, I will hand it back to you, and we can start answering questions that have come in that haven't been answered already, or whatever the case might be. So back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so please, everyone, keep your questions coming in the Q&A panel. I see some more coming in now. The first one I think we want to highlight is what are the DNS and MX records that we should be using for Proofpoint?
That is a great question, and so what I will do is we have a KB article. So this is number one. This is in our migration guide, but there's a KB article that references information. So what I will maybe tomorrow, Caroline, when we send out the recording, maybe we can add that knowledge base link to that email that goes out, so everybody has that front and center.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, next question is with manual migration, can we verify and activate without changing MX and change MX later?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Caroline? With manual migration?
Yes, with manual migration, can we verify and activate without changing MX and change MX later?
Well, I guess so. In either, whether you're manually moving data over or use the migration tool, certainly you can verify you've got all the users. You can verify that the Proofpoint Essentials can reach the destination server. So all of those things you can verify ahead of time. And then the very last thing you would do, so you'd want to verify at a minimum that the domains are registered, the users are loaded, and Proofpoint Essentials can reach the destination server of where we're going to be sending the clean stream of mail through to. So those things you can do well before you do your MX records. And again, that's whether it's manual or using the tool. And then once you've switched the MX records, again, you can repeat those tests, which will just verify that, yes, indeed, the MX records are pointing to us. And then you can also check log files, and you'll start to see that those log files listing messages that have come in. So yeah, the answer is yes, again, but it applies to whether it's, you don't want to use a migration tool, or for whatever reason you chose not to or can't, and you just manually move content over. Yes, you can verify those settings before you flip the MX records.
Okay, great. Next question is, we're having difficulty confirming whether clients have been sent welcome emails. How do we do that?
So maybe what I should do is share my screen and walk through that. But ultimately, there's no way to confirm if you've already done this, but you can at any time trigger a welcome email. So that would be, the steps would be to, maybe I should share my screen, but the steps would be to go to the user and groups page inside of Essentials, and you'll see a drop down that gives you the option to do a mass update, and then you simply check the send welcome email, check the box that says send to all users and hit proceed, and that will force a welcome email to go to all users that are registered to that organization. One way you could potentially check it is if you just go look at some of the users you've already got on the system. If you go look at an individual user's profile, there is information of whether they've ever logged in before. So that's a bit of a low-tech approach, but if you check a handful of users and you see no one's logged in, that might be an indication that a no welcome email was ever sent. But certainly there's no harm in sending out a welcome email, even if you have already sent one previously. It won't impact anyone to any great degree. So that would be the way to proceed.
Okay, next question is, after receiving the token from McAfee that then redirects you to the Proofpoint Essentials portal, do we log in with the org admin of the domain whose account we're migrating, or our partner login account?
That's a really good question. I know where that question is coming from, because there was a time where we required you to log in with the org, or the customer admin account. And if you logged in with your partner account, we would improperly associate the token to the wrong entity in our system. So we've fixed that. So you can do whatever you like. If you log in with the customer admin account, the spam admin account, then the first page you're going to see is the migrations page. So it's the first thing you'll see front center is start migration. So that is helpful because it just saves you a step. If you log in as your partner, and I've seen this happen before, if you log in as your partner, you haven't triggered migration yet. So now if you log in as your partner and you navigate down to the customer, you would then have to start migration. So I have seen incidents come in or questions come in saying, hey, I did this, why didn't it migrate? And the reason, that's exactly the reason. They've logged in as their partner account. They see their partner page, but they never navigate down to the customer to trigger migration. So both will work, but the key point here is you have to trigger the migration, and to do so, you have to navigate to the customer's page and click on the data migration tab. So if I just walk back here, so this tab here is key. So if you log in as your partner, you navigate down to the customer, you click this tab, and you will see this page, and you click Start Migration. Okay, so hopefully that helps clarify. Both will work, but there's an extra step if you use your partner credentials.
Okay, great. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So next one is, with F1 and F2 partner type accounts, can you clarify what administrator type accounts need to be created either under the McAfee or Proofpoint portals to give the necessary permissions?
So within Proofpoint, what you would want to do, and so again, the first step within Proofpoint for those type of accounts is you have to create that basic customer shell. When you do so, the contact or the account contact that you create would be an organized, what we call an organization administrator. That's sufficient, right? So if you create another account and want to use that other account inside of Proofpoint, as long as you make that an org admin, it'll work. If you make them an end user, then it won't work. So they have to be an administrator associated with the account. Kevin or Graham, do you want to comment on what account on the McAfee side is required to see that migration tab?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I can take that on. So obviously, for anyone who's at a F1 or an F2 level, that's going to be at a customer administrative role that needs to see that, and at the partner level for F3s who have a reseller shell and multiple accounts underneath that shell, it's the partner administrative role that would need to confirm that.
Great, and the screen I'm showing you now is an example of a partner admin, so you can see this account is a partner admin. But yeah, I guess just to echo what Kevin said, if you're a customer admin, so you log in with your spam admin at thedomain.com, that would be an administrator account, and that would be sufficient to see and trigger the migration. And on the Proofpoint side, you would want that account to be an organization administrator.
Okay, great. So we have one last question, but please do send them on any more through if you think of any, because we can follow up after the session. So last question is, does the migration from McAfee copy the config and doesn't change anything on the McAfee side that would affect mail flow?
So yeah, I can take that one. Yes, the migration is completely non-destructive and non-intrusive, so triggering that will not have any effect on the mail flow.
Okay, great. So I think I can wrap up if there's no question. Oh, there's one more question that's come through. Resending the welcome message will invalidate the user's password and force them to, so will that force them to set up a new one?
Yeah, that's, I should have mentioned that. So yes, if you sent them out and people have credentials, it won't reset their password, but it still could be confusing. So if they take no action on that new welcome email, then they're okay. They can continue to use their account and log in without issue. And just while we're on this, two things I want to show. So number one, here is a link to our KB article. This is, oops, clicked a little there earlier there. So here is the information you need. This US1 MX information, so everything is spelled out here. So we'll include that link inside of the update we send out tomorrow. And worth showing you, since I'm here, just since it came up, I've just logged in with an organization administrator account on our system. I go to, this is my own personal account. This is the user and groups page. I select mass update. I choose send welcome email. Apply changes to all user accounts. Hit this button, and that will trigger the trigger that action. So so for those of you wondering where that was and my verbal description wasn't good enough, hopefully this gives you a little more clarity.
Okay, great. And one last question came through there that I think we'll just squeeze in since we're here. So just to expand on what user to use to log into Proofpoint during migration, simply click users on the McAfee control panel, and the first user listed is the admin. That's not really a question, but maybe just, is that something to expand on?
So Kevin, can you expand on that? I think that's just some helpful guidance on how to identify who the customer admin is for an account. Is the top one listed? Can you confirm?
Correct. Typically, we have a series of roles assigned to every user within the control console, and at some point, typically a customer admin role has been associated, although it's not required to create an account. Say if a partner, an F3 partner, were to establish a number of customers beneath them, they could choose not to establish a customer admin. So it really depends on whether it's an F3 partner and they've created the customer and whether a customer admin role has been established. But then again, at the F3 role, we only really need to see that the reseller's performing the functionality. For every customer that's been created by us in association with an F1 or an F2 partner, a customer administrative role has been created, and they would be the ones to see the functionality. The only time that becomes a little different is when we do have one of those service provider accounts. Those accounts typically are only enabled with a domain admin, and a domain admin would not see any of the migration functionality.
Cool.
Great.
Also,
Thanks,
Chris,
yeah.
we just noticed that what you were showing before was actually just showing the PowerPoint, so that we're just seeing the slides.
Yes, yes. So everything here that I was showing previously were just slides. That's correct. It was not a live look.
Okay, cool. Good. Okay, I think that's everything then. So I'll wrap up. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and a huge thanks to Chris, Graham, and Kevin for helping answer those questions and taking us through the presentation. Like I said, this session has been recorded, so I will be following up with everybody in the next few days with an email that'll have the additional resources, for example, that knowledge base article that Chris mentioned, the replay, and an invite to our partner update next week as well. So you should receive that in the next few days. So with that, this concludes our webinar, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.